Okay, here I am to bring you another Amber Geiger trial update. Day 7 just wrapped. The defense and the prosecutors both gave their closing arguments, and now it is in the hands of the jurors, and they are currently deliberating. They have not yet come back with a verdict, so they have to resume at 8 o'clock a.m. on October the 1st. And that's pretty much the little small update right now. But I have to talk about Judge Tammy Kemp right here, and something she did that rubbed a few, and I do mean a large few people, the wrong way. A lot of people. Something that I have talked about on my channel already. Now, I have talked about the Castle Doctrine, which is basically like a stand your ground thing, but it works inside the home. And the Castle Doctrine is supposed to be beneficial for the person who lives in the home, meaning Botham John. Now, I talked about this in another video, and people were telling me that they threw out the whole Castle Doctrine on the first day. And I said, okay, y'all better just check to be sure, because they may try to pull something underhanded where they can use it again. And sure enough, my hunch was correct, because Judge Tammy Kemp made a very bold move that if this turns the tide of the entire case because of it, I'm gonna have to go in on her. Even though I praised her all last week, I'm gonna have to go in on her if this bitch is found not guilty. Because according to what I found out, now they can use the whole Castle Doctrine thing on the benefit side for Amber Geiger. I'm gonna go ahead and read this article. It says closing arguments wrapped up Monday in the trial of Amber Geiger, the former police officer who fatally shot her black neighbor after walking into his apartment last year. But the trial's final day, Judge Tammy Kemp made two key decisions that could determine whether the jury ultimately finds in their deliberations. The Castle Doctrine functions much like stand your ground laws in other states, allowing a person to use force, even deadly force, in the protection of a home, vehicle, or other property if someone attempts to forcibly enter or remove an individual from the premises. And what appears to many as bizarre reconfiguration of the law, Judge Kemp ruled that jurors can consider the doctrine in their deliberations, where it could be used to defend Geiger's actions despite the fact that she was intruding on her upstairs neighbor Botham John's home the night of September 6th. Because Geiger has claimed that she mistook John's home for her own and thus misidentified John as a burglar, a jury could use the doctrine to justify her use of force in shooting John. Judge Kemp also ruled that the jury may consider returning a lesser charge, manslaughter, as opposed to murder. As NBC explains, this means prosecutors must prove that the 31-year-old Geiger must have intentionally or knowingly caused John's death for the jury to return a murder verdict. For Geiger to be found guilty of manslaughter, jurors must find she recklessly caused John's death. Throughout the 7-day trial, prosecutors tried to convince jurors that Geiger made a series of unreasonable decisions the night she shot and killed John. They drew attention to sextings she had sent to a former partner in the hours painfully obvious differences between John's and Geiger's apartments. It was ultimately Geiger's negligence, prosecutor Jason Fine argued in his closing remarks, that put Bo in the ground. Geiger's defense, on the other hand, framed John's death as a tragic accident. She was off duty but in uniform the night she killed John, having just completed a nearly 14-hour shift. One Texas Ranger who investigated the case said many residents at the housing complex John and Geiger lived in told authorities that they too had accidentally parked at the wrong floor or attempted to enter the wrong apartment. See, they keep going with that narrative right there, but none of those people that they went into their apartments, none of them died. This chick killed somebody. That's what makes the difference here, but they keep trying to frame it as it being an accident. I'm telling you right now, if she gets off of this, we as black people might as well just leave our doors wide open, and any palm-colored person can walk into our house and say, oh, I didn't know I lived here, pull out a gun and shoot us dead and claim that it was an accident. Still, no other accidental encounter at the Southside Flat complex resulted in a death. According to investigators, John was relaxing at home after just completing an errand. He was eating a bowl of ice cream when Geiger barged through his door, her gun drawn. Taking the stand last Friday, Geiger confirmed that she had intended to kill John when she shot him in the chest. That's all they need right there. She killed with intent. Like, That's it right there from her own mouth. At one point, she also testified that being alone with John in the moments after she shot him seemed to her the scariest thing she could imagine. Can you imagine Mr. John's perspective? An intruder barging into his apartment, lead prosecutor Jason Hermes asked during the Geiger's cross-examination, and then having been shot and fallen and being alone in that apartment. Can you imagine that being a little bit scarier than you just being alone at the moment? All I'm saying is this. That insertion of the castle doctrine thing is not a good look. And I told people, like, I said, didn't they say something about a castle doctrine? And I was like, I knew I wasn't hearing things people were saying. No, they cut it out at the beginning of the trial. I was like, okay, but you never know what they might do. They might do something underhanded. And look at what's going on now. Like, this is getting, like, now it's like, the writing is on the wall. It's like I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for what I'm assuming might happen, but I don't want it to happen, because something tells me when it does come down, when that verdict gets read, and if it's not the way that I want it to go, I'm going to go the fuck off. Like many people will. Like, how can you enforce a castle doctrine when it's not your castle, aka your home? That's not her home. Who cares that she thought it was her home? That was not her home. That was his home. She was the invader. She was the intruder. She was the damn murderer. Listen, I don't give a damn if she is a palm-colored bitch that looks weak and mild. The heifer is a cold-blooded murderer. Point blank. Period. That's all she is, and at this point, all she will ever be in my eyes. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.